A summer noon in Kentucky. The air was scorching hot. A silver BMW shimmered under the blazing sunlight, parked on the side of a quiet country road. Inside the car, Daniel, a man in his 70s with silver hair, wearing a crisply ironed dress shirt, sat with a face full of discomfort. He tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, impatient. The car's air conditioner was running at full blast, yet it couldn't chase away the sweltering heat or the rising frustration in his chest. Daniel Evans is a name long associated with the world of finance. Wealthy, successful, respected. Everything he had was built from scratch. But at this moment, all his power meant nothing. Against a flat tire and a phone screen flashing, no service. He had called roadside assistance 3 times. No one answered. Far from the city, his mansion, and the assistants who were always on call, 24/7, Daniel was now just an older man, stranded alone under the midday sun. And then, through the shimmering heat at the far end of the road, a small figure appeared, walking toward him. A skinny boy wearing a faded t-shirt, worn-out jeans with holes at the knees, and sneakers with nearly worn-down heels. He walked empty-handed, but with bright eyes and steps full of certainty. Daniel frowned. Strange. Who was this boy? And why was he walking toward him as if he knew exactly what was happening? Less than a minute later, the boy was standing by the car window, not scared, not hesitant, just a confident nod. "Got a flat tire, sir?" Just one simple question, but it marked the beginning of a journey Daniel never imagined would change his life forever. The unexpected appearance of the boy tomboy tardily took Daniel a moment. He looked down at the worn-out shoes, the threadbare faded t-shirt, then up at the sun-dusted face, eyes glowing brightly. "Yeah, I've got a flat, and there's no one around here. I've called roadside assistance over and over, but no one's answering." Daniel sighed, his voice tinged with frustration. Michael, the boy didn't introduce his name right away, crouched down to inspect the rear right tire, then looked up with a genuinely warm smile. "I know how to change it. My grandpa's been teaching me for years. Do you have a spare?" Daniel nodded and pointed to the trunk. Without waiting for another word, the boy walked to the back of the car, opened the trunk with practiced ease, and started pulling out the tools like a little mechanic. No complaints, no hesitation. Michael worked with an unusual focus. His tiny fingers turned the lug nuts as if he'd done this 100 times, each step precise and confident. Daniel stood by silently. Something in his gaze began to shift, from confusion to curiosity, to a strange new emotion. Humility. This petite boy, clearly with nothing in his hands, seemingly from a humble background, was helping him. A financial millionaire with a big house, a nice car, everything. With such natural ease, it was almost unbelievable. "What's your name?" Daniel asked instinctively. "I'm Michael," the boy smiled. "My house is nearby. I see a lot of cars break down around here, so I've gotten used to it." In less than 10 minutes, the BMW was ready to hit the road again. Michael stood up, brushed the dirt off his hands onto his pants, and smiled with satisfaction. "All done, sir." Daniel quickly reached for his wallet and pulled out a stack of cash. "Thank you. Take this. I can't let you help me and give you nothing in return." But Michael immediately stepped back and shook his head firmly. "I helped because I wanted to help, not to get something." A simple sentence, but it left Daniel frozen in place. He was still holding the money, while the boy turned away, walking off with a small whistle on his lips. He could only call after him, "Michael, thank you." No reply came, only a tiny figure walking farther and farther away, leaving behind a big heart in the presence of an older man who once thought he had seen everything in life. That night, in his sprawling mansion on the outskirts of Kentucky, Daniel sat silently in his familiar leather armchair, surrounded by priceless paintings and bookshelves filled with volumes he had never opened. Dinner, an expensive steak and a glass of fine wine, sat untouched on the side table, cold. He couldn't stop thinking about Michael, the boy with torn shoes, a faded t-shirt, and bright glowing eyes, who had helped him without expecting anything in return. No hints, no expectations, simply helped because he felt it needed to be done. Daniel had lived his entire life in a world of contracts, deals, and endless negotiations. Everything in his life came with conditions. Every handshake hid an agenda. Every offer of help was a calculated move. Yet today, a boy changing a tire had taught him a lesson in unconditional kindness. He stared into the swirling scotch in his glass, but it tasted of nothing. His mind spun with a barrage of questions. Where did the boy live? What kind of family did he come from? How did he learn such grace and strength at such a young age? Daniel suddenly remembered his childhood, when his parents still lived in a small wooden house, working themselves to the bone to afford his education. He once had ideals and compassion, until life swept him into the whirlwind of ambition and wealth. Had he forgotten the most important thing? When he gently refused the money without the slightest hesitation, Michael's eyes appeared vividly in Daniel's mind. Eyes that held no fear, no hunger, only calmness and dignity. He had never met anyone like that, and indeed, never a boy like that. That night, for the first time in years, Daniel couldn't sleep. Not from worry, not from work, but because of one thing. He had to find that boy again, not to repay him, but to understand, and maybe to change himself. Daniel left the mansion early the following day. No notice to his assistant, no meetings on his calendar, and no laptop in tow. Just him, his familiar silver BMW, and one powerful urge. He had to find the boy named Michael. He returned to the quiet road where his tire had blown the day before. Daniel scanned both sides of the road as he drove, hoping Michael would again appear from behind a bush somewhere, with his worn-out shoes and radiant smile. But the road remained silent. Daniel pulled into a nearby gas station and asked the attendant about a young boy who often helped strangers. The middle-aged man shook his head. Sounds familiar, but I don't know anyone like that around here. He then continued to a small roadside diner. The moment he stepped in, dressed in an expensive dress shirt, face etched with contemplation, curious eyes turned his way. Sitting down and ordering a black coffee, he asked the waitress, "Do you know a boy around 13 or 14 years old who walks around here and often helps people with broken-down cars?" The older woman behind the counter paused, then squinted at him. "You're talking about Michael, aren't you?" Daniel looked up, eyes lighting up. "Michael? His name's Michael?" "Yes. That kid lives with his mother in Harlan, a town about an hour's drive from here. He often comes down this way to help people, clean sidewalks, or even fix cars for truckers." Daniel smiled and almost exhaled in relief. "Thank you. You just gave me exactly what I needed." As he returned to his car, Daniel felt like he was embarking on a journey, unlike any boardroom meeting he had ever attended. This wasn't a task to be completed. It was a missing piece of something long lost, waiting to be found. He started the engine, heading straight toward the town of Harlan, a place he had never even heard of before. But it now felt more critical in his heart than any skyscraper he had ever owned. There lived a boy named Michael, and perhaps a part of his heart was waiting there to be awakened. The town of Harlan appeared after the final curve in the road, like a puzzle piece forgotten by time. Tiny houses lined up close together, rusted tin roofs, yards overgrown with weeds. Yet there was a warmth in the air, as if even the atmosphere here knew how to soothe. Daniel stopped the car in front of a modest wooden house. guided by an old shopkeeper in town. The front porch was slightly crooked, the steps peeling paint, but swept spotlessly clean. A pot of deep purple flowers swayed gently from the awning in the breeze. Daniel took a deep breath, stepped out of the car, and walked up to knock on the door. It opened to reveal a woman in her 40s, her hair tied neatly, wearing an old apron dusted with flour, her eyes cautious but not unfriendly. "Sorry to bother you," Daniel said gently. "I'm the man who had car trouble yesterday. Michael helped me change my tire. I just wanted to see him again and thank him." The woman blinked, then smiled proudly. "So you're the one." She opened the door wider. "Michael's out back, fixing the fence. Go ahead." The house was simple but tidy. Family photos hung on the walls, children's crayon drawings, and faded certificates of academic achievement. Daniel paused momentarily as he passed through the living room, because there was something his grand mansion never had: the breath of life. He stepped into the backyard, and there, in dappled sunlight filtering through the trees, Michael was hammering a loose fence slat back into place. The boy looked up at the sound of footsteps, eyes widening as he recognized the man. "Hi there, sir." Mister," Michael said, stumbling slightly. "Did your car break down again?" Daniel chuckled. "Number this time I didn't come for help. I came to say thank you." Michael scratched his head, sheepish. "I just helped because it looked like you needed it." Daniel nodded, stepping closer, looking directly into those bright, clear eyes. The eyes of a child with nothing in his hands, but something many adults had lost: unconditional kindness. "Michael," he said, "what you did yesterday might seem like an ordinary thing around here. But for me, it meant a great deal. Because in my world, people have forgotten how to give without expecting something in return." Michael smiled, the sunlight catching his sun-kissed cheek, making that smile glow like the entire garden behind him. "I just did what my grandpa always said. If you see someone in need, help if you can." Daniel stood there for a long while, not because he had more to say, but because he felt he was standing before the most significant lesson he had learned in 70 years. He was a poor boy, yet rich enough to change a man who once believed he had everything. And in Daniel's heart, something began to shift. Just as the two of them finished talking, the wooden door at the back of the house swung open. Michael's mother stepped out, still holding a dish towel in her hand, and called out into the midday sun, "Michael, wash your hands and come eat lunch." "Oh, is the gentleman still here?" Daniel was slightly startled. He had never been invited into someone's home for a meal, especially not under circumstances like this. Not because of status, but because he had always kept a distance from strangers. But the sincere look in the woman's eyes left him no room for excuses. "I only made something simple. Rice, vegetables, a little braised pork. Is that okay?" she said softly, yet warmly. Daniel hesitated for a second. Just 1 second. Then gently nodded. It would be an honor. The meal occurred in a small kitchen, where sunlight streamed through an old curtain patterned with blue flowers. The wooden table was scratched, and the 4 chairs didn't match, but everything was wiped clean and tidy. Each dish was laid out with a quiet care, needing no show. "Please try the braised pork. It's Michael's favorite." His mother smiled, placing a small plate in front of Daniel. He picked up the chopsticks, a little more clumsily than usual, and tried it. The meat was tender, fragrant, and had a flavor he had never found in any 5-star restaurant. The taste of authenticity. The taste of love. Michael sat beside him, eating heartily, occasionally turning to ask Daniel questions about his car, about life in the big city, about what subjects do you need to be good at to become an engineer. Daniel couldn't remember exactly what he said. He only knew that, for the first time in many years, someone was asking him questions that had nothing to do with money, contracts, or stocks. only the innocent curiosity of a child, longing for a decent future. The meal ended with a glass of cold iced tea poured from an old glass pitcher by Michael's mother. She looked at Daniel, eyes sincere. "Thank you for visiting. We don't have much, but our door's always open if you come by again." Daniel placed his hand on the table, feeling the rough, coarse, yet warm wooden grain. He nodded and smiled, a smile he hadn't realized he had forgotten how to make. "I will come back," he said, "not because of the car, but because I think I've just found something far more important." And at that moment, amidst the old kitchen, the humble meal, and people with no big names, a man who once believed he had everything suddenly realized that what he was missing was something this simple. After the simple yet heartwarming meal, Daniel said goodbye to Michael and his mother, just before the sun dipped behind the rolling hills of Kentucky. On the drive back in his silver BMW, the peaceful countryside passed by outside the window. But Daniel's mind wasn't there. It replayed the same images: Michael's worn-out shoes, the rickety old table, and the ceiling fan turning slowly beneath a water-stained patch. Something inside him wouldn't settle. It wasn't pity. It wasn't a sense of debt. It was gratitude. Michael had given him more than just a moment of help. The boy had shown him a part of himself that Daniel thought he had lost amidst decades of wealth and power. The very next morning, Daniel sat down in his study. He opened his laptop, not to check his investment accounts, but to make a plan. He called an old friend, the owner of a local construction company. "I need a small, discreet crew to rebuild a modest house. No mansion, just something solid, warm, and with a backyard big enough for a swing set." Then he made a few more calls. A simple interior designer, a second-hand appliance dealer, a small computer shop. "I want that house to have a new washing machine, a small fridge, and a decent laptop for learning STEM," he said. "Nothing extravagant, but everything should come from the heart." A week later, when the first truck pulled up in front of Michael's old home, his mother stepped outside, startled. She had never seen so many strangers arrive with equipment and supplies. Daniel arrived at the same time. He wore jeans and a plain button-down shirt and held a clipboard like a regular site supervisor. "We told you. We're fine." Her voice was full of confusion. Daniel gently shook his head, eyes sincere. "You raised a boy who knows how to give without needing a reason. You don't need anything. But I need to do this. I can't leave here without giving something back. Not out of charity, but out of gratitude." Michael stood beside her, his eyes wide as he looked at the piles of lumber, fresh planks, buckets of paint, and even a ladder propped against the side of the house. "What's happening?" he asked. Daniel bent down and placed a hand on Michael's shoulder. "This is called, when someone plants the first seed, someone else waters it. And today, I'm just watering." As the workers began their tasks, Michael's mother was still overwhelmed, but her eyes began to well up, not because of the material gifts, but because, for the first time, after so many years of trying, someone truly saw her effort and chose to respond respectfully. And Daniel, the man who once believed everything had a price, had learned that some things can only be received when we expect nothing in return. In the following weeks, the old house where Michael and his mother lived slowly transformed, not just through new materials, but through the spirit of those involved. The rotting roof was replaced with a sturdy new metal sheet. The warped wooden floor became a solid, tiled foundation. Once equipped with only a rickety gas stove and a struggling refrigerator, the kitchen was now replaced with a simple, yet clean and functional setup. The front porch was rebuilt from scratch. Daniel personally chose each piece of wood, not the most expensive kind, but the kind he once dreamed of in his childhood home. A brand new swing set was installed in the backyard, strong, safe, and painted a soft blue like the sky. Like a bit of a bee, Michael ran around the site daily. He helped the workers carry bricks, pick up fallen nails, and wipe paint off others' hands. Daniel often told him, "You don't need to do anything. Just enjoy your time being a kid." But Michael just smiled. "I don't know how to sit still. Besides, I want to see how they do it. Maybe one day I'll build houses like you." One day, a worker named Joe, a big man with tattooed arms, noticed Michael intently watching him measure wood. "You like this kind of work?" Joe asked. Michael nodded. "I like watching things change, like how a few planks can become a porch or a staircase. It's like turning something broken into something okay." Joe laughed and patted the boy on the shoulder. "You've got an eye for things. Could be a great engineer or architect someday." From that day on, Joe often let Michael try measuring wood, cutting samples, and learning to read blueprints. Daniel watched from a distance, warmth swelling in his chest. He hadn't just repaired a house. He had accidentally opened a door to the future for a boy who had only known scarcity. And Michael's mother, every day, she greeted the workers with a cool drink, sometimes a small batch of hurriedly made cornbread. But her eyes, each time she looked around at the house transforming around her, always gleamed with happiness mixed with disbelief, a nameless emotion known only by those who, for the first time, felt truly heard through action. One afternoon, just before sunset, Michael ran to Daniel holding a drawing, a bookshelf he had designed himself. "Do you think, if I study hard and work in construction, I could help people like you do?" Daniel sat down and looked deeply into the boy's eyes. "Michael, you've been helping people long before you ever thought about a job. What makes you special isn't what you do. It's that you choose to act, even when no one tells you to." Michael lowered his head, cheeks slightly red with shyness, and Daniel felt like he was genuinely rebuilding something for the first time in decades. Not just a house, but his soul. As the repairs neared completion, on a pleasantly cool afternoon, Michael's mother stepped out onto the porch with an old white kitchen towel in hand and called out, "Michael, Daniel, come wash up, dinner's ready. We're having bone broth soup with cornbread tonight." Daniel, who had been inspecting the back fence, turned around, slightly taken aback. He hadn't expected to be invited for dinner. Something so simple, yet a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. "Uncle Daniel, please come eat dinner with us," Michael said, his eyes shining. Daniel hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I'd be honored." The meal occurred in the small kitchen, around an old wooden table with 3 mismatched chairs. But every dish, from the steaming soup to the simple plate of stir-fried greens, was aromatic, tidy, and carefully prepared. Michael ate while chatting away about school, what Uncle Joe had taught him about measuring, and how he wanted to learn more about construction someday. His mother smiled softly, occasionally picking food for him or refilling the guests' water. Daniel sat quietly, holding a cup of tea, listening to every word. He felt like he was home. Not the grand villa where he lived in cold silence, but a real home with laughter, thankful glances, and a meal that wasn't elaborate, but deeply comforting. After dinner, while helping wash the dishes, Daniel turned to Michael's mother and said, "You've raised Michael wonderfully. That boy reminds me of myself, back when I still believed kindness was something normal." The woman smiled, her eyes slightly misty. "I don't have much to give him, but I taught him that. If you can help someone, even in the smallest way, then just do it, because this world is already lacking that." Daniel looked at the woman before him, then at the boy diligently wiping down the table, and inside him swelled a sense of gratitude, not for the meal, but for being reminded that sometimes the most incredible things don't lie in what we possess, but in how we live alongside others. And he knew, After today, he would no longer be the man who lived inside a BMW, surrounded by a cold, empty mansion. A part of him had stayed behind, in that tiny kitchen, in the clear eyes of Michael, and in the warmth of the simplest meal he had ever had. The following day, as sunlight filtered through the trees behind Michael's house, the quiet little neighborhood suddenly buzzed with unusual excitement. Trucks loaded with construction materials arrived one after another, parking in front of the old home. Workers brought scaffolding, paint, bricks, and measuring tools. Curious neighbors stepped outside, wondering what was going on. Michael sat on the porch steps, wide-eyed. "What's happening, Uncle Daniel?" he asked, his voice trembling in surprise. Daniel smiled, holding a clipboard, dressed simply like a real construction supervisor. "This is the first step in thanking you and your mother." Michael's mother stepped out of the house, quickly wiping flour off her apron, stunned by the scene before her. "Mr. Daniel, what is this? What are you doing?" Daniel approached her, speaking gently but firmly. "I'm not doing charity. I'm repaying a debt." That day, Michael didn't just help me change a tire. He helped me remember something I had forgotten for many years: unconditional kindness. "But we manage fine. I don't want people thinking I'm accepting charity, because we're in need," she replied, slightly shaky with pride. Daniel nodded, his gaze filled with empathy. "It's precisely because you never asked, precisely because you never demanded anything, that I know you are the most deserving. This isn't because you need it. It's because you deserve it." The air went still for a moment. Michael's mother looked at her son, the boy standing there with a bright smile and sparkling eyes. She gently squeezed his shoulder, then turned to Daniel and slightly nodded. She understood that this was a gift that couldn't be refused, not because of its material value, but because it was a gesture of recognition. In the days that followed, the old house gradually took on a new appearance. The roof was replaced with a sturdy new one. The porch was rebuilt with quality wood and solid steps. Double-glazed windows were installed for better insulation. Inside, the wooden floors were polished, and the kitchen upgraded with modern appliances. But the family photo frames on the walls remained untouched. One thing that delighted Michael the most was the swing in the backyard, which was replaced with a brand new one, sturdy, painted a soothing sky blue, exactly like the one he had drawn in his dream notebook. Most importantly, the house was still a home, not transformed into a cold, impersonal structure. Daniel had requested that old traces be preserved. The pencil marks on the doorframe, marking Michael's height through the years. The little kitchen corner where mother and son once peeled potatoes together. Because he knew the actual value doesn't lie in what's new, but in how we honor the past. And so, amid the sound of drills, hammers, and children's laughter, a new chapter began. Not just for Michael and his mother, but for Daniel as well. A man slowly rediscovering the true meaning of wealth. Throughout the days of home renovation, Michael wasn't just watching. Curious like a young engineer, the boy was always hovering around the workers, asking about everything, from measuring wood and NAND, stalling the roux, to coordinating paint colors for harmony. One of the workers, Mr. Harlan, noticed the boy's unusual enthusiasm and started letting Michael try simple tasks, cutting measuring tape, marking points, and even holding the spirit level to check alignment. "You've got a knack for this, kid," Harlan chuckled. "You should go into construction one day. It'd suit you." Michael's face lit up while Daniel stood from a distance, quietly observing, feeling something unusual swell in his chest. Pride. That evening, when work paused for the day, Daniel sat with Michael under the new porch. Each held a glass of lemonade Michael's mother had just brought out. "So you really like building houses, huh?" Daniel asked, looking at the boy fidgeting with a measuring tool in his hand. Michael nodded, eyes shining. "I want to be a structural engineer. I want to build homes for people like my mom. Good people, but who don't have much money." Daniel nodded slowly, his eyes gazing into the distance. In his mind, the blueprints and business plans that had once made him famous now felt small. Compared to a 13-year-old boy talking about a dream, not to make money, but to give others a roof over their heads, Daniel's achievements suddenly felt strangely faded. He turned to Michael, serious now. "Then I'll help you make that dream come true." Michael whipped his head around in surprise. "What did you say?" "I'll cover all your tuition, materials, training programs, even a college scholarship if needed, as long as you don't give up on your dream." Michael was stunned. A soft breeze rustled the new porch roof. The boy looked at Daniel, and a slow, radiant smile spread across his face. "I won't give up," he said firmly, voice crystal clear. Daniel smiled and gently patted Michael's shoulder. "Good, because the world needs more people like you." That evening, as the sun set behind the green hills of Harlan, something was planted, not just bricks and cement, but a seed of hope. And Daniel knew that seed would one day sprout and grow strong, becoming a towering tree that would provide shade to many others. The final week of the renovation passed in laughter and excitement. Neighbors gathered to see the once worn house now dressed in a fresh new look. Bright red roof tiles, a spacious front porch, and whitewashed walls adorned with paper flowers and green plants. On Inauguration Day, Michael wore a clean white button-up shirt, his hair neatly trimmed by his mother. He ran around eagerly, giving friends a tour of the new kitchen, his bedroom painted a soft, calming blue, and the brand-new swing in the backyard, where he once sat imagining future construction projects. Daniel stood on the porch, a cool glass of iced tea in hand, his gaze soft as he watched Michael, the boy who had taught him a priceless lesson about kindness and unconditional giving. Michael's mother approached, handing Daniel another cup of tea. "Mr. Daniel," she said gently, "I don't know how to say this properly. You've given my family more than just a house." Daniel smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. "You and Michael gave me something I lost a long time ago. The feeling of truly living, not just existing between fame and fortune." Together they looked out over the front yard, where children played, their laughter echoing like the most beautiful sound in the world. As evening fell, the sun bathed the small neighborhood in golden light. The people of Harlan brought simple gifts, baked goods, jars of homemade jam, and even a small potted plant set on the windowsill. "We heard Michael's story," one neighbor said, "and we just wanted to thank you for seeing a kind of value that this place sometimes forgets." Daniel nodded. He didn't need more words. He knew he hadn't come to be honored. He came to return the hope a humble boy had once given freely with his whole heart. That night, as Daniel prepared to leave, Michael ran up to him. "Uncle Daniel, I've decided," the boy said, eyes sparkling. "Someday I'll build houses, not to make money, but so people will have a place to come home to." Daniel bent down and hugged the boy tightly. "You will, and I'll be here, watching every step you take." The silver BMW rolled out of Harlan, carrying a man who once believed his life was already whole. But today, Daniel knew, the real journey was only beginning. Behind him, a new home glowed brightly in the heart of the town, where a strong mother and a young boy held the heart of a world builder. The story ends where it began, but what remains is a gentle reminder. Life isn't measured by what we have, but by how we choose to give.